After buying an old car and rebuilding it, a young nerd is possessed by it, and now his car decided to go after all those who mistreated him, revealing itself to be a monstrous vehicle. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today we are going to recap the story of the movie Christine from 1983. Today's movie starts in September 1957 at a Chrysler Corporation assembly plant in Detroit, where many white 1958 Plymouth Fury are being assembled. Among the rather plain-colored vehicles, there was only a bright red one. During the check process, this particular red car, one factory worker almost got his hand cut off when the vehicle's hood comes down on it. Another factory worker takes a seat inside the vehicle. He turns on the radio and starts smoking and throwing the leftovers into the car. A few hours later, they found him dead inside it. 21 years later, on September 12th, 1978. Arnie Cunningham is a meek, awkward, unpopular teenager wearing black-rimmed glasses, characterizes him as a nerd. He spends his weekends playing Scrabble with his parents, who still treat him as a child. Arnie has only one friend, Dennis Gilder, a famous football player in the school. He always picks up Arnie in his car to the school and stands up for him. During shop class, Arnie is bullied by several students led by Buddy Rapperton. Dennis tries to stop the bullies, but he couldn't because they are many, so he tells someone to call the teacher. Meanwhile, Buddy took Arnie's sack lunch and start making fun of it. He throw it on the ground, then he push Arnie and breaks his glasses. When both Arnie and Dennis tell the shop teacher that Buddy had a switchblade in his pocket, he gets really angry and tells Arnie that he will take his revenge back pretty soon. Later on that day, Buddy got fired from the school, and Arnie was scared because now Buddy will look after him for sure. While he was going back home with Dennis, Arnie was scared because he was afraid that he would be fired from the school. Dennis. Arnie notices a used Plymouth Fury with a placard announcing for sale. It is the same vehicle that we saw on the Detroit assembly line, only now it's dirty, gritty, broken, with pieces peeling off or falling apart. In spite of everything, Arnie falls in love with this car. He immediately wants to buy it. George Levy, the owner, tells them the story of the car. He inherited it from his dead brother, Roland. The current owner also tells Arnie that the car is named Christine. Arnie buys it and drives Dennis home in his new car. Once at home, his parents angrily start pestering him for having spent his money on a car without consulting them, and especially one in Christine's wrecked condition. Arnie angrily shouts back that throughout his life, they haven't allowed him to have something he truly wants, and that he is dead set on keeping Christine. However, his parents refuse to have it parked in their driveway. Arnie decides to take it to a local junkyard garage run by an irritable middle-aged man named Will Darnell for storage. Over the next several weeks, Arnie begins working on Christine whenever he has a bit of free time after school. He also starts to help Mr. Darnell around his garage. This was the first time when Arnie stood up to his parents. However, it's not only about being against parental control. Dennis also notices a subtle change in Arnie, as he seems to be more assertive, weirdly enough. And he also says, using his eyeglasses. Regina, Arnie's mother, tells Dennis that Roland actually committed suicide in the car. After that, Dennis visits George, who admits that Roland's daughter had choked to death in the car and that his wife also committed suicide in it. George forced Roland to get rid of Christine after his wife's death, but the car returned to him after 3 weeks. In the night, Dennis sneaks inside the garage, but when he tried to open the car door, he couldn't, and suddenly the radio starts on him. And he's in the car, Dennis directly runs away. During a football game, Dennis is shocked to see Arnie arrive, and Christine, now fully restored into a shining, beautiful red car, but also along for the ride is the new student, Lee Cabot, whom Dennis earlier tried to go out with her on a date, but she rejected him. The sight of the two of them together causes Dennis to make a mistake on the field as he's tackled hard. This puts an end to Dennis's football career and to his ambitions for the future, so he ends up pretending to be a footballer. Dennis is now a footballer, and he's a footballer recuperating in hospital, surrounded by medical paraphernalia. One night, he takes her to see a film at the drive-in, and there, Lee confesses to Arnie that she thinks he's moving too fast in their relationship. She also claims she feels unsettled when she is around Christine. During the movie, one of Christine's windshield wipers becomes stuck, and Arnie gets out to fix it. As he does so, Lee chokes on a hamburger, and immediately, the door latches lock themselves. Arnie tries to get out of the car, but Arnie doesn't. Arnie tries to get back into the car unsuccessfully. Basically, Lee has to save herself when she manages to unlock the passenger door, and a nearby viewer who saw her struggling performs the Heimlich maneuver on her. He then drives Lee home. At her doorstep, she tells him that she won't go anywhere in Christine again. There are weird things about the car, she says, like when only old songs can be reached through the radio aerial, but none of the local radio stations can be heard. Arnie then returns to Christine, and she says, I don't know. When he tries to start the engine doesn't work, but after talking Working with the car, the radio start and the engine turn on. Then he drive it to Darnell's garage. Buddy and his crew were waiting there after he left. They destroy every single piece of the car using big hammers, and they even put shit on the dashboard. The next day, Arnie comes to check the car with his girlfriend. After seeing his car broken, he gets really angry and shocked because all the work he had put into restoring has evaporated. He suspects that Arnie has done something wrong, and he's not sure if Lee was somehow responsible for the wreck and get really mad at her. While he was eating dinner with his parents, they told him they are sorry for what happened to his car, but Arnie didn't believe them. They suggest buying him a new car, but he got mad and left the dinner. His father follows him and asks him to apologize, but Arnie almost chokes him. Arnie can only think of one matter: restoring Christine to its full beauty again. The next day, the first thing he does is go to the garage to restart working on Christine. While he was looking for his tools, he hears the crinkling of metal behind him. He looks at Christine startled, and he realizes that part of her engine is now repaired as if by magic. Arnie doesn't look startled anymore, and he encourages Christine to restore herself in front of him by telling her, "Show me." The car flicks her headlights on, and obediently, there is suddenly mayhem. Pieces are moving to their original position. The hood doesn't open, and the car is in a state of panic. The car is in a state of self-off. The aerial strengthens up. Buttons and seats start mending themselves and end up being shiny like brand new. The living malevolent car has the power to regenerate. Later on that night, while Moochie was going back home, he got surprised by the car waiting for him. At the beginning, he thought it was Arnie trying to scare him, but when the car tried to crush him here on away, then she started chasing him until he got stuck in an alley. She crushed him to death. The next day, a local detective meets Arnie and starts asking him questions, but Arnie pretends like he doesn't know anything. The detective was also surprised. How was Arnie able to repair the car in one day? Then he left. At night, Christine comes to life by herself, and she seeks out and gruesomely kills the other member who took part in destroying her. She starts chasing Buddy in his car. Eventually, Christine arrives at a gas station after destroying his car and killing his friend by spilling gasoline, setting it on fire so that the building becomes debris and ashes. Christine catches fire herself, but she still goes after Buddy. He tries to run away from the scene, terrified because he has seen unexplainable thing happen, but Christine catches him, then crushed him and lets him burn on the street. Christine goes back to the garage. Darnell saw her and got surprised because he sent Arnie in his car. He took his gun and headed to the car. After opening the door, he finds it empty. While he was sitting inside her, the radio started on, and Christine also kills him by the slow method of crushing him in the front seat against a steering wheel. The next day, while Arnie was going to check his, he got surprised by the police there taking pictures of his car and gathering evidence. The detective approached Arnie and asked him a few questions, but Arnie answers that he knows nothing like last time. But State Police Detective Rudolph Jenkins becomes suspicious of Arnie, having discovered paint from Christine at the scenes of 2 gang member deaths. However, he has no direct evidence to implicate Arnie. After a few weeks, Lee calls Dennis and she wants to meet him to talk about Christine. Lee tells Dennis the supernatural element in Christine. Also, Dennis told her about the previous owner and all what happened to his family, knowing that they can only talk to each other about that as nobody else would believe them. They know they will have to kill Christine. Dennis decided to call Arnie at his home, but Lee advises him to take the caution. While she was leaving, Arnie arrives in Christine and invites Dennis over. Arnie drives Dennis to the Formers. Dennis realizes that Arnie is now another person doing things he would have never done before during his nerd phase, drinking beer while driving without using his hand. He also watches how Christine's mile counter moves backward, having fewer miles instead of more. Arnie tries to explain to Dennis how wonderful, strong, and fulfilled he feels when he is driving Christine. He also tells him that he loves Christine. Dennis, determined to put an end to his nightmare, he thinks killing Christine is the only way to take back his old friend. Dennis and Lee are worried about Arnie, especially Dennis, who really misses his best friend. The next morning, Dennis goes to the school parking lot and scratches Darnell's into Christine hood and drives off with Lee. They go to Darnell's scrapyard and they wait for Arnie and Christine inside a bulldozer. Night falls down and Dennis devises a plan. He tells Lee to wait in the office. The plan is that she will shut the door on Christine after her arrival, trapping the vehicle inside the office. And while Lee was on her way, the car's lights suddenly break the night. Car was hiding under a pile of garbage. Christine drives towards Lee, trying to run over her, but crashes onto one of the office walls. Instead, Arnie gets ejected through Christine's windshield and is impaled on a shard of glass, fatally wounding him. Arnie is bloodied, but in the last breath, he just caresses Christine's front bumper for the last time, and in his own way, he dies happy. Enraged, Kristen attacks Lee once again. Dennis drives the bulldozer, and he fights Christine, who is playing Pledging My Love at top volume on her radio. Christine is still set on dealing with Lee first, so she approaches her top speed to run over. However, Dennis drives the bulldozer up onto the car's back, stopping her and crashing it. Lee climbs into the cab of the bulldozer and embraces Dennis. Meanwhile, Christine returns back to life and begins to heal herself over again. Dennis has to drive the bulldozer over Christine, crashing her onto a thin layer of metal and glass materials until her headlights flicker and then go out for good. Dennis compacts the red car Christine onto a cube. In the last scene of the movie, within the scrapyard cube, a metallic stick starts to slowly move and straighten up.